Men only become good men through negativity. Women are actually the opposite. Men who have been through a lot of pain are very kind. When I see a man who's been through a lot of shit, it makes you kinder. You don't want it to be put on anyone else. When women go through a lot of pain, they grow bitter and evil and mean. They don't grow kind. Men grow kind from pain. The worst men on earth are the ones who haven't had enough pain. Those are the arrogant pieces of shit people. You're supposed to suffer as a man. You're born to suffer. You're not supposed to get rich off a fucking stupid meme coin like that without doing any work. You're supposed to suffer. The whole reason God put men on this planet is to suffer. And the best men are the ones who suffered the most. I wouldn't be top G if I didn't suffer more than anyone else. You're a better man than everyone else if your life was a mess and it was a hardship, because you're not what happens to you. You are how you react to it. And the best men on earth are men who have had their parents die, their best friends betray them, their girl betray them, thrown in jail, their money stolen, stabbed, robbed. And every time something happened to them, they sat there and they looked in the mirror and said, what can I learn from this? How can I stop this happening? Those are the best men. Those are the men men respect. Those are the men women want. Why do women love scars? Look, they tried to kill him and they can't. That's why I want him. The best men suffered. You find a man who's never been through suffering and nobody gives a shit about him. Men don't like him and women don't like him. Men are no good without it. Lots of people are going through the world trying to get experiences, but they're so obsessed with getting the positive experiences that they never really experience life at all. People go through life and they say, I want to make money on a crypto coin, and I want to get rich, and I want to buy a Lamborghini, and then I want to get a beautiful girlfriend, I want to go on a boat in Miami, and all this positive, but there's no light without dark. You could do all of those things and you'd still be miserable if you didn't experience the dark. If you have not experienced true misery and pain, you'll never ever be happy. So if you're going through life as a man and you're looking for experiences over comfort, which is what you should be doing, which is what the great explorers of the world have always done, because they weren't looking for comfort. Comfort's at home. Experience is out there. All the sailors, all the warriors, they were looking for experiences. I love the negative experiences along with the positive experiences. I love jail because it's an experience. Is it a bad experience? Sure. But then my bedroom is beautiful once again, like it's never been before.
How was that first sleep back?
This is the point. Everyone's obsessed with the positive experiences, but nobody is chasing any kind of negative experience. I believe every man should be choosing to do something which is extremely hard, which they hate, which sucks, because you don't appreciate life at all without it. The reason people chase higher highs all the time, and the reason they're constantly taking drugs and trying to new pussy and drink more alcohol and chasing higher highs all the time, is because they don't experience any lows. You always want a higher high, but I promise you, the high you're at is fine if you balance it with a little bit of low. If you bounce down there for a week and come back to where you were, you're good. Constantly chasing higher highs is hedonism, which ends in one place. It always ends in a spiral, a downward spiral. You need to stay away from constantly chasing those things. You need to artificially manufacture some lows. I chose fighting because fighting will do that for you. It's hard, it's stressful, you're worried, you train all the time, you're exhausted, you win, you lose, you get hurt, you go hospital. There's a lot of negatives in it. There's not enough negatives in men's lives today. It's amazing how the human mind adapts to its surroundings. In some ways it's stressful, but there's no light without dark. In other ways, it's not very stressful.
As a man, there is no easy life. If you're looking for an easy life, you should have been a girl. You made a mistake.
Yep.
Your life is not about being easy. Your life is not about being happy. Your life is always going to be difficult. All of the pain you feel, all of the sadness you feel, you're supposed to feel as a man, and you have two effective binary choices. You either go through the suffering and go through the trauma and go through the hardship it takes to be a man of value, or you suffer eternity as a nobody. And being invisible, I would argue, is almost worse. You can have a very stress-free life if you work in Starbucks. You don't care about the Starbucks once you clock off. You're not at work at the time. You go home, you play video games, and you exist until you die. That's stress-free, but you have to suffer being a nobody. Alternatively, you can go out there into the world, try and implement your mark on the world, work hard, try to get rich, more money, more problems. You can try and start a business, the stress of that. You can lose your girlfriend because all you're doing is working. This is a new level of stress, a new level of trauma, but at least you'll be a somebody at the end of it. There's two ways to suffer. You either suffer to become a somebody, or you suffer as a perpetual and forever nobody. What did Napoleon say?
He said, glory is fleeting, but obscurity is forever.
Absolutely. Glory is fleeting, but obscurity is forever. And when he says fleeting, that's a really good point, because everything in life is rented, especially your glory as a man. When you have a good body, it is not a good body as complete. It's not finished. You haven't completed the task. You have rented that good physical condition. You must train every day to retain it.
I think God wants me to be the best possible version of myself. I think that God dislikes people who are lazy. I said this to somebody once and he got very offended. I said, God doesn't like lazy people. God has created you and he wants to see the absolute best you can be. I think that if you don't take care of yourself, God has no interest in taking care of you. If you have a Ferrari on the drive and you don't take care of it, who's going to take care of it? Nobody. I think that taking care of yourself and being the best possible version of yourself you can be is how you please God. I think that's one of the best ways to praise Him, is to wake up every day and say, I need to be the strongest, smartest, fastest, most fearsome, most stoic, most capable man I can possibly be. This is how I please God. I think that as a man, there's always going to be a degree of pain and suffering in your journey. I don't think you're ever going to become a successful man or be good at being a man without pain and suffering. And many times in my life where something terrible happened to me, and at the time, if I could change it, I would have. But retrospectively, you kind of look back and go, you know what, that was formulative for me. That's right. That is what God decided I needed to become who I became. So all of the pain and all the suffering I've ever gone through in my life ended up, in the end, building me into the person I am, and I'm proud of who I am. I don't think many men especially understand that even if you don't have the strength to be a hero for yourself, you should have enough discipline and enough honor to want to be a hero for somebody else. And if you have other people you truly respect, you should want to be a hero for them. And I think that's the masculine imperative. If someone's going to attack your wife, that's when you become a hero for her. You have to. What kind of man are you if you're not? You have a brain, you have a mind, you have a mental model. You can't think of everything, you can't do everything. You can only have certain frameworks instilled inside of your mind. As a man, you should be hyper competitive. You should try and be the best version of yourself you can be. You're competing against every other man on earth for the girl you want, the car you want, the house you want, the watch you wear. It's all competition. You should be as competitive as you possibly can. Anything that's inside of your mind which doesn't allow you to be competitive should be erased. So I started at the absolute lowest echelon of life, and I would like to consider myself somewhere near the top now. I've been through absolutely every stage. So when I say to men, you can become anything you want, and my answer to you is masculine excellence, there's no other answer. I can't tell you how to rig the game and cheat the game. If we're all racing a race and I have a Ferrari and you have a Nissan, I mean, sure, you can get a bit better at driving, but you're probably going to lose. You have to get a better character to play this game of life. So that's why I preach masculine excellence, because for many of the world's problems today, porn, sexual access, being respected by your peers, making sure that your wife's going to stay with you after the children are born for a very long time, that's right, being happy, anything, it all comes down to who you are as a man. The only answer is masculine excellence. There's nothing you can do besides hard work, accept the trauma and pain and suffering, and work harder than everyone else around you worked. We have a men's mental health crisis. Young men are disenfranchised. The suicide rate amongst men is much higher than women, and everybody pretends to care. But when I come along and say, I am a man, I've been a man, I know how it feels to be a sad man and a happy man, and I found happiness through masculine achievement and strength, through working hard in the gym, through dedicating myself, through building a life worth living, through taking care of the people who I love, both male and female, through becoming financially successful, through sticking up for myself, through having opinions, through being a man of honor and courage. When I do these things, I'm ostracized, and they're attempting to destroy my life.
I talk about this all the time. People say I've had a traumatic life. I say, well, then you're very, very fortunate. You had a traumatic life. Now, you may have misused that trauma. You may have misplaced it. You may have accepted the matrix telling you that you now have an excuse to fail, as opposed to using it to grow. But every single man of value went through trauma, and they went through pain. It's going to be painful to get strong, painful to get rich, painful to become important. It's going to be painful to become good with women. Your heart's going to get broken a bunch of times. You have to be prepared for the pain. If you're not ready for pain, you're never going to be anything that matters.
I think that the number one problem with the world today, and the biggest problem that men face, isn't the problems themselves. It's just the way that they are been taught to mentally frame issues. People think when bad things happen to them that somehow they're a victim to the universe and bad things only happen to me and this is so terrible. They don't understand that bad things happen to everybody, and the most successful person you know had all those, probably maybe even worse, at least the same bad things happened to them. They just framed it differently and used it.
And this is what people really don't yet understand. There's only one thing on the planet you actually have control over. You can't control the weather. You can't control your health. You can get a brain aneurysm or a heart attack. You can't control other people. The only thing you can actually really truly control is what you think. That's the only thing you can change in real time. You can be thinking of red and change it to blue. So why are you not controlling your own mind? It's your asset. It's your ally. It's your friend. Why would you make an enemy out of the only thing you have control over? I refuse to do that. It doesn't make sense to me. The worst thing on earth that could happen to a man could happen to me. And I guarantee you, I would still label myself happy. I'm happy because that's who I am. That's how I view myself. That's what I've decided.
It's amazing how much strength you can get from knowing that your ancestors are looking down on you and you're doing your absolute best. I also believe that God can be proud of you when you do your absolute best. And I don't think many people genuinely do their best in the world anymore. When I say do your best, people sit and go, oh yeah, okay. No, when's the last time you actually did your best? Like, I don't train to run marathons, but I know if I gave my best, I could run a marathon right now, first try. If I gave my best, life depending on it. When's the last time people have genuinely given their best to anything? There are people going through the world and going through life today that don't give their best or 100% effort to anything ever. Ever. They can't remember the last time they tried. I think it's very difficult to do nearly anything important if it's not, perhaps to a degree, driven by love or the desire for love even. I think the reason a lot of men want to become rich is because they want to feel loved or feel important or to matter. Mm-hmm. I also feel like the reason that a lot of men do the things they do is for love, either of themselves or of someone else. I think the reason men go to work is because they love their family. The reason you go to the gym is because you love yourself.
Mm-hmm. If you take a man and give him a life shielded from problems and he never has any to face, I guarantee you he's terrible at being a man. The best men in the world have gone through shit. That's why women love scars, because it didn't kill you. That's the whole point of it, right? So the best thing you can do as a man is look and go, okay, this is hard, this is hard, this is hard, this is hard. I feel negative because these are all so difficult. I'm struggling with X, Y, Z. Let me internalize all of that and turn it into a superpower. Let me become genuinely uncomfortable with my situation in life and go and fix things. Because, like I said, the universe is absolutely and utterly very giving. And if you truly hated being in the position you were in, you wouldn't be there very long.
When men say to me they're depressed, with unlimited options, with the capability to become anything you desire, with God giving you a full and able body and mind, how do you have time to be depressed? Mm-hmm. You have so much you could do. Mm-hmm. There's so much that you need to do to be your best self, and you're competing against men like me, and you're finding hours a day to be sad? Mm-hmm. No wonder you're going to perpetually lose forever. Right. That's suicide. So how do you find time to do this? Mm-hmm. It's brutally ineffective.
If you construct a mindset that allows you to be as competent as possible, as opposed to feel any different or feel better, then you're going to naturally come to the conclusions I've come to. You're as competent as possible if you believe you can affect absolutely everything about your life. You're as competent as possible if you believe absolutely everything that's happened to you, whether good or bad, is completely your fault. You're as competent as possible if you believe the bad things that happen to you are going to allow you to work harder and become even better. When bad things happen to me, the first thing out of my mouth is good. Good.
If any man's honest with himself, think about the biggest transformative stages in your life. Think about the times you got the most work done. It was a bad part of your life. You were heartbroken, or, you lost a house, or broke, or whatever. That's when you did shit.
There is a huge percentage of the populace which they're beyond saving because they're the worst thing you can possibly be, which is a quitter. Being a quitter is the worst thing you can possibly be. God himself can't make a quitter important, because the only reason the place you're trying to get to has value is because it was difficult to reach. If everybody could reach it, there'd be no value. Value is linked to scarcity. The whole point gold is valuable is because it's not everywhere. If it was everywhere, it wouldn't have any value. The reason the place you're trying to reach is valuable is because people can't get there. So if you're the kind of person who quits, you're never going to get there. Quitters are the worst.
And the masculine world is hyper-competitive. This is another thing most people don't understand.
Totally agree.
It's hyper-competitive out here. All the women want a few men at the top. The Ferrari, you don't want a Ferrari to drive fast. You want a Ferrari because other men want a Ferrari and can't have one. It's hyper-competitive. So if you're competing against every other man for every dollar you make, every girl you see, the house you live in, the car you drive, the life you live, you're not going to be able to compete with the person who performs regardless of how they feel if you only compete when you feel like competing. And if life is perfect all the time, you don't appreciate anything. I actually think one of the worst lives you can have is a life where everything goes right all of the time. If you're spoiled to that degree, especially as a man, as soon as you reach any kind of difficulty, you're going to crumble. So I've had to get up a bunch of times, and I do not pray for an easy life. I pray for a difficult life with difficult challenges to solve and being strong enough to handle them. I've never tried to make my life easier. In fact, quite the opposite. If you really want an exceptional life and to do exceptional things, you can't only hope for the positive exceptional.
The only reason you appreciate being rich is because you were poor. If you were born rich, you don't appreciate it. Only reason you appreciate being in good health is because you were once sick. When you're sick, you'll do anything to be healthy. If you've never experienced sickness, you don't know what health is.
There is no light without dark. Perhaps I'll be a happier person and live a more fulfilled life and enjoy my fantastic benefits that come with wealth if I do go. Perhaps I can have a more positive message and more people will know my name if I do go, Matt. Perhaps I'm ready to martyr myself. Perhaps I am ready to charge at the gunfire. Perhaps I don't care.
There's a lot of people who complain about the bad things that happen in their life, not understanding that without the bad things, you'd have no life at all. You need all of the bad things. You need the mental struggle. You need to go through things which you regret. You need to sit there so that if you've never regretted any action you've ever taken, how can you sit and make a intelligent decision for the future? You can't do it.
Yep.
You need to sit and say, well, I felt the sting of regret for X. I don't want to feel the sting of regret for Y. You need this experience. And that's what life is all about. People think that life is just the good times. And this is the massive misconception. Love is a perfect example. Let's use love. Because people think being in love is holding hands and I hold hands and we cuddle in bed. I love them. Love is the whole spectrum. Love is missing them. Love is breaking up with them. Love is being sad they don't text you. Love is the whole circle. There's no up without down. Anything that has the ability to emotionally affect you positively has the ability to emotionally affect you negatively. There's nothing in the world that can only affect you in one direction. Even something as asinine and stupid as an object. Life as a man is pretty shit, and you're going to feel shit for a pretty large percentage of the time. But you're only going to ever escape that if you just perform regardless. You have to perform when you feel bad. As a man, you can't say, I will perform when I feel good. It doesn't work that way because our heads are too complicated and life's too complicated. There's too much on our shoulders and we have too much stress and too much pressure. Our heads are fucked. You have to be the kind of person who says, I perform regardless. I didn't miss a single day's training. I didn't miss a please. I didn't miss a thank you. I'm not saying I was happy. I'm saying I did exactly what I was supposed to do.
If you want to be the most competitive predator on the planet, you have to be able to hunt in the day and the night. You have to be able to do both. You have to be able to perform when you're happy and sad. You can't only be able to perform when you're happy. You can't only go to the gym when you're motivated. You can't only be a competent person when your life's going well, because when your life's not going well, you're no longer competent. Then you're going to lose to people like me. And it's player versus player. If you're the kind of person who can only do well when you're happy and you're competing against someone like me who can do well all the fucking time, guess what? You lose. So my mental model, the answer is most of my opinions are just based around constructing a mental model that allows me to be brutally competitive.
Things happen to people and things are going to happen to everyone. And even if you live the perfect life, you're still going to have bad experiences because everything's relative.
Yeah.
So small things can be big. Yeah. And you have to learn to get on with it and be disciplined. And if you don't have a disciplined upbringing, you don't learn to go through hard times, you're just going to end up one of those people who just is a complete feather in the wind. You just succumb to your emotions. Yeah. And that makes you either a pussy or, as a man, also makes you dangerous. These people, these serial killers and these school shooters and all these things, these are people who just give in on their emotions instantly. These are people with no self-control.
They never had fathers around. 99% of them in America, they're from a single mother kind of type home or some shit, no father around.
And they never had anyone sit and say to them, I don't care how you feel, you're not allowed to act that way.
Yeah.
And that's it. So when they feel a certain way, they think, well, I'm going to act this way then.
Yeah.
And that's what's dangerous. This is also why I became successful in the first place, because I've always been capable of fighting and going through pain and dedicating myself and doing difficult things and having hard things happen to me and being emotionally regulated. So perhaps what's so interesting about it is even if I want the dark, no matter how deep I dive into it, no matter how much mess I try and get myself in, I'm just going to end up springing back and having more fans and more followers and more people talking about me and more social media.
Bro, it's the emotional regulation that I'm worried about. I'm like, how the hell does this guy do it?
Well,
how do you manage that?
Yeah, for me, it's relatively easy
because it's a new dark again.
It is, but that's part of I'm looking for the journey. I don't want the comfort. I want the challenge. I'm looking for the journey. So no matter what bad is happening to me, part of me is always going to sit there and detach myself from myself and analyze it from the third person and say, wow, fantastic. This is going to be a great opportunity for you. It's a great opportunity for you to prove yourself to yourself and prove yourself to everybody else and prove yourself to God. Feeling depressed is real.
Yeah.
Depression as a disease, I do not subscribe to. The idea, I believe, that if you feel depressed, something is depressing you, and you should try your best to fix it. You should take control of your life and do your best to fix it. The idea, but they don't say that. They don't talk that. They say depression like it's this magic thing that comes out the sky and it gets in your brain. You're sad no matter what, and there's nothing you can do about it, and you need to only take pills. And I think that's a very bad way to look at the world, and that's a bad idea to subscribe to. And if you start to feel depressed, let's say your girl leaves you and you start to feel depressed, but you believe in the idea of depression, you're now going to start diagnosing yourself as clinically depressed, self-hypnosing yourself into hypnotizing yourself into being clinically depressed. And it's amazing how you can speak things into existence.
I cannot become depressed because I don't believe in it.
So how about chemical imbalances in the brain?
Bullshit. That's all been disproved anyway.
Really?
It's all been disproved. Firstly, that's all been disproved. And secondly, even if that was true, even if I had a chemical imbalance in my brain, I do not believe in depression. Next time you see a rich guy, go up to him and say, how'd you get rich? I've never heard anyone say university. Ever! I've never heard anyone say it's a lie. It's a scam. When I was 16, I saw the guy in the Ferrari. I was like, I'm going to college and he isn't. And he ain't going to work. He knows something I don't know. I knew at 16 everything they tell me was a lie. But there's still people who think they have 5 years to waste in college. 5 years. I'm 37. Let's conservatively estimate I make for myself $250,000 a day, let's say. 5 years ago, I was probably making 20 grand a day. That's the difference 5 years can make. 5 years. And they're going to sit there and do what? Read a book from 22 years ago? Go party? Oh, fraternity. Bro,
Competence is confidence. I think they go hand in hand. You're going to be confident in doing things you're good at. And I understood I had to get good at things from a very young age. And I was challenged from a very young age to constantly test myself in endless competition. My whole life has been competition.
Correct.
It was chess tournaments from a very young age.
Yeah.
And then it was professional fighting. My whole life's been a massive competition.
Right.
And I understood that there's winners and losers. And that's how the world operates. To this day, right now, it's the same thing. And you just get good at the idea of competition. I think there's a lot of people out here who don't realize they're in a fight. Or they know they're in a fight, but they want to ignore the fact they're in a fight because they don't want to have to accept that they're losing. So they wake up and say, oh, I'm just a man living life.
Bro, they're too comfortable.
They're too comfortable.
Yeah, mental health and depression is an interesting one because, like, you look at Tyson Fury, right? How can you not respect the heavyweight champ? Gypsy King, G, right? And he was talking about how he was depressed and how he fought his way out of it and everything. Huge respect for the guy. He was depressed, and the only way he fought and beat his depression was one day he got up, grabbed himself by the bootstraps, got in the gym, became the champ again, brought himself back to the former champion he was. Mm-hmm. He did it himself, right? And I think that that's really the only way any of these things can be beaten. I think if I were to talk to Tyson or Tyson were to talk to anybody, he'd say the same thing. He'd say, look, end of the day, even if you're struggling, it's you that's going to have to get up and get the work done and change your life. I think that a lot of the help, which is being purported now by the system, by the Matrix, isn't designed to help. I think it's designed to keep people in this state of depression because when you're depressed, you're submissive. You don't care about what happens to you if you're depressed. Depressed people aren't going to riot against a new law or against COVID tyranny because they're depressed. They're too busy. They're at home and they're sad.
the best option, the best thing to do is still to get up, be an adult, control your emotions, be stoic, and do the things you're supposed to do day after day. Laying in bed and doing nothing is never going to be the best option. The best